Today we wanted to talk about good shoes and bad shoes. We get this question all the time, what is a good shoe to wear? And it really depends a lot on your foot type. Today we brought in a variety of shoes from local shoe stores. We want to thank Bow Booterie and Geared for Sports for helping us out with this. They have great quality shoes, and so we're going to go through the different shoe types that are out on the market right now and what foot type they're going to be the best for. If your foot is really flexible, you need to get your stability from your shoe. If your foot is really rigid, then you're gonna need to get some cushion and some flexibility from your shoe. So you need to have this balance of stability and flexibility. If we talk about the different foot types, we have a wide variety of feet out there. You have the very flexible feet that are the flat arches. As soon as they step down, the arch collapses. If they were to walk across the floor with wet feet, their footprint would be just basically this big blob that the whole foot is in contact with the floor. Very little arch support, very little lift in that arch, if you'd say, and that foot type is going to take a much more rigid shoe. So if we talk about that really flexible foot, the really flat arch, we would like to go with a shoe that is more stable. This is a walking shoe from New Balance, but I want to show you the characteristics of a good shoe. In this shoe, if I twist it side to side, there's very little twist in this shoe. I can kind of bend the toe box, but not a whole lot. Ideally, I would probably like to see a little more bend in this toe box, but for a walker, this would probably be fine. If you were gonna run, this would probably not be the greatest shoe for running. As you can see, as you look on the medial side or the inside of this shoe is pretty full if you look at that. And that is another sign that it's gonna be more stable and give you more support. The other thing, this heel counter on this shoe is very rigid, and I tried to push down on that. I can barely move it. The heel counter is great support. Really, there's no give in the bottom of the heel, so there's gonna be a lot more stability in this shoe. So again, this is a good walking shoe for somebody that has really flat feet. So if you have a very flexible foot, very flat arch, and you are more of a runner, this is more of a running shoe. As you can see, there's more bend in the toe box, so we like to see that. We also like to see a wide toe box, especially if you have a wide foot, but the more room you have in this toe box area, the better it's gonna be for your feet and toes. It's not gonna pinch your toes. Things that we see develop from the toes being pinched would be like Morton's neuroma. You can get some numbness in your foot, so we want a wide toe box no matter what your shoe. But with this shoe, we have a good bend in the toe box. We have somewhat flexible when I twist side to side. It's fairly full through here, but you can see it has a little bit more of a cutout here, so a little less stable than the walking shoe. When we push on the heel counter, it's pretty good, doesn't want to collapse too bad, and I don't get too much cushion or too much give on the outside of the heels. So this is a pretty good shoe for somebody that has a relatively flexible foot that is wanting to run. The next shoe that we have, again, is somewhat more stable. So for somebody with a more flexible foot, again, a good bend in the toe box. We have a good fullness through here on the inside of the arch. When we look at the heel counter, there's maybe a little bit more give here in the heel counter and a little more cushion in the sole. But again, that would be a good shoe for a flexible foot and somebody that's either wanting to walk or run. Now we get into kind of the middle of the road types of shoes, and that's for your average foot. So your average foot would be, you don't completely flatten your arch out when you take a step. You still have somewhat of an arch. And when you make tracks, you have more of your heel and then the outside of your foot and then the ball and the toes when you would step down with a wet foot on a floor. So all of those types of feet would be good on these middle of the road shoes. Again, this one has some flexibility and some give. We have a good bend in the toe box. We have some fullness through here. And now this one, the heel counter maybe gives a little bit more. The heel counter is important because it's almost like a ankle brace, if you'd say, because it's stabilizing your ankle from the back. And so that is really, really important, especially if you have some instability in your ankles, if you've twisted your ankles a lot, sprained your ankles. Having a good firm heel counter is going to be important on those feet. For those of you that have a very rigid foot, that's what I have. I have a very rigid foot. I have a very high arch. It does not give much when I step. So I need more flexibility from my shoe. So this shoe that I just showed you would be a good one for me. There is some flexibility and some give in there. I'm okay with getting a little more cushion on the heel because again, I don't get the cushion from my foot. We also have this one that's a pretty good middle of the road to more of a flexible shoe. Again, a good bend in the toe box. You know, if you try to bend these shoes in half, this one I can kind of bend in half a little bit more. So again, I know that there's a little more give here, and then there's not much stability here in the heel counter on that. This is going to be one that's going to be a better shoe for someone that has a more rigid foot. I can also get along with something like this. When I get into something a little more rigid like that, I actually will get more ankle pain and knee pain because I'm not getting the flexibility from my shoe or my foot, so that jarring and that impact has to go further up my leg. Then we get to the very, very flexible shoe. We see a lot of people wearing these kinds of things. Everybody thinks, oh, well, they're just so comfortable because they're like wearing a slipper. Yes, they are, but you get zero support from this. Even with my rigid foot, I would not wear this shoe. Not that it's a bad shoe, but you would want to, if you are going to wear the shoe, you would want to put something in here to give you more support. So a pair of orthotics, which is what I do when I get into a more flexible shoe. As you can see, I can totally fold this shoe in half. So if I'm looking for support, this shoe is not going to give it to me. It is going to be light and comfortable, but if you opt for this kind of a shoe and you do need some support, please put some orthotics in there or something to help control your arch supports. Again, if you have a very rigid foot, you're going to need a flexible shoe. If you have a flexible foot, you need a rigid shoe.